Hello and welcome to Fast Thinking. My name's Barbara Slavin and I direct the Future of Iran initiative at the Atlantic Council. Today I'm joined by Matt Kroenig, Deputy Director of our Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security and Director of our Global Strategy Initiative. And we're talking about what's next for the Iran nuclear agreement under the Biden administration. Now, my view is that the Biden administration will return to the Iran nuclear deal, to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. This would follow through on Joe Biden's promise during the campaign to go back to compliance if Iran does. I think the Iranians in turn have said that they regard the agreement as still very much alive, despite the U.S. withdrawal in 2018, and that the steps they have taken out of the deal in the last year in response to the U.S. withdrawal are all eminently reversible. So to my mind, the key is to sequence those steps back to full compliance on both sides. And here I think the Europeans can help bridge the gap between now and Biden's inauguration on January the 20th. We've just released a new paper on this topic entitled Renewing Transatlantic Strategy on Iran, and it's available on the Atlantic Council website in case you would like some more details. Then, after we return to the JCPOA, we can talk to Iran about issues not covered by the deal, such as missile proliferation and Iranian support for non-state actors in Arab conflicts. I would note that the Iranians have expressed an interest in regional conflict resolution, and it's actually been Arab countries like Saudi Arabia that have rebuffed these overtures. We can talk about how sincere these overtures have actually begun. But I think we in the international community writ large should be encouraging diplomacy, not just flooding the region with more weapons and imposing draconian sanctions. Now, my colleague Matt, I think, has a different view. So, Matt, over to you. How do you see it?
Great. Thanks, Barbara. Well, I agree that the Biden administration will try to return to compliance with the JCPOA. And I agree that I think Iran will come back into compliance as well. It's not going to be easy necessarily for Iran. They have ramped up their nuclear program. And so this will mean, coming back into compliance will mean dismantling centrifuges, getting rid of stockpiles of low enriched uranium. But I do think that will ultimately be the outcome. And now I think once they're into the deal, then the key is going to be what do the follow-on negotiations look like? Because the world has changed since 2015. Some of those sunset clauses are already expiring. Some of the sunset clauses on enrichment expire in only 5 years. And so I think it will be important to try to negotiate a follow-on agreement. And as the Biden administration does that, I think that they should also engage with Congress and Republicans in Congress. I think part of the problem in 2015 is that there wasn't bipartisan support for the Obama administration approach. And I think the Biden administration should try to correct that this time, engage with Senate Republicans and try to get them on board with their approach. Now, I guess I would say I do think that I am afraid, I guess, that we will agree to terms that are too weak, that don't fully address the problem. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised we actually agree more than I thought we would. There's been an effort from some quarters in Washington to try to encourage Biden to put new conditions on not to return to the existing agreement. And of course, this is coming from people who oppose the JCPOA from the start. And I think, frankly, your position is much more realistic. I mean, the Iranians have made it very clear they're not going to renegotiate the 2015 deal. But they've also said that, of course, if the U.S. comes back in, they come back in, then they're willing to talk about other issues. And there's something called the Joint Commission, as you know, which was set up under the JCPOA, where the U.S. can sit with Iran and the other parties to the deal and talk about pretty much anything it wants. And one of the keys is going to be, to my mind, reestablishing a channel for conversations with Iran. Also, if you look at some of the people coming in, or at least on the agency review teams for the Biden administration, there are a lot of familiar names, people who've had experience dealing with Iran in the past. And we have a short window before Iran has presidential elections in June of 2021, where our people can actually deal with Iranians that they know, the team that negotiated the JCPOA. Because after this coming summer, we may see different people, and not so amenable, perhaps, to talking. Could I ask, Matt, just your view on how Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and some of the other countries in the region are going to deal with this new reality?
Well, this is something else that I'm worried about. I do think that for whatever criticisms people have of the Trump administration, that one of their successes was bringing together Israel with some of the Arab states in the region, Bahrain, UAE, Sudan, recognizing Israel for the first time. And I think that was facilitated in part by the United States' tougher approach to Iran. And so if we're switching the overall U.S. Position in the region, more engagement with Iran, I do think that Israel, some of the Gulf states are going to be skeptical of that. And so that will be a balancing act for the Biden administration. How do you have this negotiation with Iran, even as you capitalize on those gains made in the late stage of the Trump administration?
Yeah, well, I don't think Biden is going to want to go back on those normalization agreements. I think he should pocket them. But, my hope someday, frankly, is that we can get all of the parties to these various conflicts in a room. But maybe that's a topic for another day. So I think that's it for this episode of Fast Thinking. Stay tuned for more.